Our first speaker is the new music director and conductor of the Longmont Symphony, Elliot Moore. Maestro Moore made his Carnegie Hall debut in March of 2015, conducting his newly formed Blue Period Ensemble in a program that included Gustav Mahler's Song of the Earth. He and his wife recently moved here from Detroit at the conclusion of the Longmont Symphony's 18-month National Music Director search. Please help me welcome Elliot to the stage.
So much. Is my mic on? Yes, it seems as though it is. Great. So my name is Elliot Moore, and I am the music director of the Longmont Symphony. And first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. And one of the things that I think is so awesome is that here we are talking about home. And it's very apropos for me and my wife because we just moved here about 7 months ago. And so we have just loved making Longmont our home. When I was a child, I was born in Anchorage, Alaska, and when I was 5, I moved to Los Angeles, and after Los Angeles, actually, I moved to Denver for only 6 months when I was about 6 years old, and then moved to Texas, one place in Texas, and I moved to another place in Texas, and I moved to Cleveland. After Cleveland, I moved to Switzerland, where I lived a few different places. Then after that, I moved to New York and Michigan, and so forth, and there it goes. It's like a list, all the places that I've lived, right? But one of the issues with moving around so much is that you don't necessarily know where to call home, right? You don't know where your roots are. And so I mentioned that I lived in Switzerland, and Switzerland is a very interesting place to live when you don't know where your roots are. And the reason that it's very interesting to live there when you have no idea really where you're from, is because basically every single person who is Swiss, they have a dialect that they speak. It's not just like they speak Swiss German, but they speak a specific kind of Swiss German that's specific to that town, or not even that region. It's like within a square mile you can peg somebody from where they're from. And so I felt in that sense, maybe I could say, well, I'm American, but then again, I don't have, any sort of accent. I don't have a Boston accent. I don't have a New York accent. I don't even know what the Alaskan accent is. So I felt in that sense a little lost. And what happened was I moved from Switzerland back to the United States, and I moved to New York. And it took me 3 days to feel like I was a New Yorker. And it wasn't because I had ever spent any great amount of time in New York. I certainly wasn't born there, and I maybe been there once. But what happened was I realized, and by the way, this is really a commitment that I made to myself right when I started conducting. So I was originally a cellist, and I don't play very often these days. And so when I became a conductor, what happened was I made a commitment to be of service to the community that I was in. I made a commitment to have a positive impact, and I made a commitment to leave that place better for my having been there. And so I moved to New York, and I was focused on how can I make this community better for my having been, for being here. What can I do? And so I did everything that I could to make that community the best community possible. And then I moved to Michigan, to Ann Arbor, and I said to myself, this is my home. I'm going to do everything to invest in it, to make it the greatest home possible. And then 3 years later, I met my wife, and who, by the way, is here. So I met my wife, and we moved together to Detroit. And I made Detroit my home. And by the way, there's a lot that you can do to make Detroit a better place, right? And by the way, I do love Detroit, but there is a lot that one can do to make Detroit a better place. So there was a paradigm shift then that happened, right? I was so focused on making this place, whatever place it was, that I was investing in it, right? And I was doing everything in my power to make it the best place possible. And what happened in the paradigm shift was that I was no longer focused on what are my roots. I've never been back to Alaska. Am I from Alaska? Am I from Texas? I have no idea. And that question went away because I started investing in my home. And so now that I'm here in Longmont, we are here in Longmont, it's this incredible thing that I've been tasked with doing. My job is to make symphonic music in Longmont really relevant to everyone, right? My job is to inspire the community to say, oh my gosh, we've got the most amazing orchestra. Let's go support it. So here I am sort of, one could say, making the community better through music. But there are several things that sort of go into that and that I can tell you. I'll tell you at least first the quantifiables. One of my favorite ones was at the halfway point of our season, we had already raised more money through ticket sales than the entire previous season. So at the halfway point, we had already raised more money. So that means that not just more people are coming, but more people are being inspired. More people are finding music, symphonic music and live music in Longmont. More people are finding it relevant. So those are the kind of the quantifiables of maybe how you can make a greater impact. But then there's the intangibles, and there's a story that happened relatively recently. A cellist came up to me, and she said, Elliot, I gave my friend a call the other day, and in fact, I've called her a number of times, and what I said to her was, you won't believe it, we had another inspiring rehearsal. And what makes me feel so good about that is, okay, it's nice that she said that to me, right? And I guess maybe I am her boss, so maybe she's sucking up. But the bigger thing, though, is not that. It's that when she's inspired, what is she going to do? What impact is she going to have now that she's inspired? Is she going to go into the schools more? Is she going to prepare more? Is she going to be talking to more people and the symphony is going to be building? What is going to happen when you're inspired? And then another thing that I'm really excited about is the inroads that we've made this year with school children. Because our last concert, I could look out into the audience and see 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th, 8th graders, and they were all over the place. They were everywhere with their families. And what I think is so amazing about that is not just that they find it exciting enough to come, it's that what we're doing is we're ensuring the future of the art form for the next generation in Longmont. And I'm just so happy to be here and so inspired by what's the transformation that's occurring at this symphony and within the community regarding live music that, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. And second of all, I'm so happy living here in the community, and I guess like Livia said, it would be great to have everyone for dinner. So maybe I'll see you at intermission and let's talk. Thank you so much.